A sweatshop or sweat factory is a pejorative term for a workplace that has socially unacceptable working conditions. It is defined by the U.S. Department of Labor as a factory that violates two or more labor laws. In the United States, investigative journalists known as muckrakers wrote exposés of business practices, and progressive politicians campaigned for new laws. Concern over working conditions, as described by muckraker journalists during the progressive era in the United States, saw the passage of new workers' rights laws and ultimately resulted in the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938, passed during the New Deal.
In developing countries, an estimated 250 million children ages 5 to 14 are forced to work. Products that commonly come from sweatshops are shoes, clothing, rugs, coffee, chocolate, toys, and bananas.
Unfair labor practices have existed worldwide throughout most of history. During the Industrial Revolution, the United States population was growing exponentially. Unfortunately, the continued high population growth, spurred by immigration, helped to maintain the value of individual workers low as there was a ready supply of people to fill the positions. The Progressive Era brought a change in the United States. With help of unions, labor laws against sweatshops were passed. With the help of technology, globalization increased. Producing goods abroad was, and still is, cheaper because most third world countries have little to no regulation against unfair labor practices and minimum wage requirements.
We've been making clothes for thousands of years, but in the last 2 decades, they've increasingly been designed in the world's richest countries and made in some of the poorest. Computerization and the internet have helped create a global industry, where the price of high street fashion comes down, but we hardly know anything about working conditions in the textile factories where our clothes are made. Coming up, you'll find out why these Bangladeshi workers think you should pay more for high street fashion. You'll see how consumer pressure has improved working conditions in some factories, and you'll hear why more and more people think buying fair trade products is an alternative way to make your fashion ethical. There's no denying it, we all love a bargain. And for most of us, there's no better bargain than finding that perfect piece of fashion at a giveaway price. But when it comes to textiles, globalization usually means someone somewhere else in the world is paying for the real costs of cut-price clothing. It's rush hour in Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh. Every day in this city, around 4 million people go to work in textiles factories. These workers are paid about 1/50th of their American or European counterparts. And that's the main reason nearly every major clothing retailer or brand in the world will get some of their products made here. It's also why Bangladesh has become the world's 3rd biggest clothing manufacturer after China and Turkey.
We are number 3 now, and our target is to become number 2 and then number 1 someday, because we have a very important and major asset, that is the manpower, low cost manpower.
But with pressure from retailers to keep prices down, factory owners say meeting compliance standards is pushing them to the brink. And for once, unions and factory owners agree about what needs to change.
The multinational company, they are the main player of this business. This multinational company, they are providing order towards the local business people, factory owners. Even they are sourcing their raw materials from other countries. They are taking back these goods in other countries. They are selling their product to the consumers. And it means that they are in the key position, main player of this business. If they are the main player of this business, obviously they have the main responsibility for the betterment of the total workforce in this business.
Sweatshops have poor working conditions, unfair wages, unreasonable hours, child labor, and a lack of benefits for workers. A study showed that doubling the salary of sweatshop workers would not only increase the consumer cost of an item by 1.8%, while customers will be willing to pay 15% more to know that a product did not come from a sweatshop. Women make up 85 to 90% of all sweatshop workers, and employers often force them to take birth control and routine pregnancy tests to avoid supplying maternity leave or producing appropriate health benefits. Men and women alike are subjected to verbal, physical, and sexual abuse in factories from their managers and supervisors. America has stronger labor laws than most undeveloped countries, but is not free of sweatshops. Many slip under the radar of the U.S. Department of Labor. Sweatshops do not alleviate poverty. The people who are forced to work must spend the majority of their paycheck on food for their families to survive.
The fire at the Tangerine Fashion Factory on November 24, 2012, that was followed by the building's collapse in April, caused the lives of more than 1,000 workers. It brought global attention to the unsafe working conditions and low wages at many garment factories in Bangladesh, the number 2 exporter of apparel after China. The fire also revealed the poor controls that top retailers had throughout their supply chains, since retailers like Walmart and Gap said they were unaware that their apparel was being made in such factories.
I start doing searches about Nike and sweatshops and labor practices. And what I found was if you wanted to pick a company that completely violates everything that Catholic social teaching is about, Nike would be your perfect case study.
As one of the biggest sweatshop offenders, Nike has developed many factories in Vietnam, Indonesia, and Thailand. Workers are forced to work overtime for less than 70 cents per hour. Now, the Nike Corporation has resorted to human trafficking, in which they suspend migrant workers' passports and force them to work from 2 to 4 years in debt. With the revived public interest in sweatshops, Nike has increased workers' salaries by 15%. However, there is still widespread belief that human trafficking continues.
A contractor making clothes for sportswear giant Nike has been caught using forced labour in Malaysia. An undercover investigation by 7 News discovered factory workers being paid a pittance and forced to live in squalor while Nike stars earn a fortune.
This is what Nike boasts to the world. My better is better than your better. But there are two sides to Nike. The public face, the hidden misery. Tonight, the evidence.
It's no great secret that designer sportswear is made in remote factories by poorly paid workers. But what's going on here in Malaysia is something altogether more sinister. It's human trafficking on a massive scale.
Here's how it works. Recruiters in poverty-stricken countries offer desperate men and women guaranteed work in Malaysia. But there's a catch, an upfront fee, the equivalent of a year's wages. Now they're in debt. On arrival, their passports are confiscated. Now they're trapped. Then, like these Vietnamese workers we met at a secret location, they must sign 3-year contracts in a language they can't read. It's a virtual prison. To leave, they must buy out their debt and buy back their passports. But they're paid so little, escape is impossible.
What they say in here is, oh, they've been trapped and they've been lied to.
An hour's drive from Kuala Lumpur is Hi-Tex Apparel, reputedly the largest T-shirt manufacturer in Asia. It's a Nike contractor. Cameras are banned here, but posing as a fashion buyer, I gain access to the factory. Nike signs are everywhere. We saw them on every floor.
Go, go, go.
We then sought out the living quarters of the foreign workers. A group of Bangladeshis pleaded with us to come in. We're led down a filthy corridor, past people sleeping, people eating. They're crammed like cattle, 26 men per room. A staggering 350 Bangladeshi workers live in this one tin shed.
Why is it no good?
Because you see so many people no enough room, so many people living here.
There are similar barns for the workers from Burma and Vietnam, and a separate barn for the women. But conditions are even worse outside.
So this is where you bathe? This is the shower?
This one company make.
This single trough is where hundreds of men bathe.
30%, 50%, how can shower, how can wash?
Next to the trough, the toilets. Next to the toilets is where they prepare their food. For these men, there is no escape.
That is one of the most squalid, heartbreaking sights imaginable. There's hundreds of men all living on top of each other. There's a searing heat, an overpowering stench. It makes you feel really angry what's going on here, and also just overwhelmingly sad.
They work 6 days a week for just 45 Australian dollars. That's less than the cost of a single Nike t-shirt.
They have no way of escape. So that is absolutely forced labour.
Nike's hypocrisy was displayed on each level of the factory floor. Nike issued a statement this morning branding the housing
unsuitable and not up to Nike's standards.
It states,
investigations are continuing into the claims made by Channel 7.
Nike pays Tiger Woods about $22 million a year to be the face of the Nike swoosh. But these men, the real faces of Nike, get less than $6 a day to live like this. Mike Duffy, 7 News.
In order to take our research and apply it directly to our everyday lives, we decided to visit Sawgrass Mills Mall to take a look at where the items in certain stores were made. Gap, Victoria's Secret, and BCBG Maxaria, which range from relatively inexpensive products to high-class designer clothing, were 3 stores in particular that had merchandise made in large amount of countries known for having sweatshops. We were especially surprised to find that a store like Vera Bradley, which advertises itself as being made in America, had nearly all of its products made in China. Other popular brands, such as American Eagle and U.S. Polo Association, which have names that appear to be American-oriented, carried clothing made across the globe, in every country except for the United States, of course. Paxson had a few products made in the USA. Victoria's Secret beauty products and Art of Shaving had most, if not all of their products made in America. As the vast majority of factories in developing countries are sweatshops, these observations in our local mall show just how deceiving companies can be about where and how their products are made. It is easy for consumers to simply believe what they are told, especially when it is what they want to hear. But our experiences at Sawgrass Mills Mall was a harsh reminder that we must look beyond companies' words and look more closely at their actions. But there are many things we can do. We have the power as consumers. American Apparel follows vertical integration. They believe that having manufacturing under the same roof as design, marketing, accounting, retail, and distribution gives the ability to quickly mobilize all departments to respond directly to changes in the market and to have complete visibility over products from start to finish. American Apparel uses the term sweatshop-free for all their products. All their products are made in America, and their workers have many benefits. The average steward with experience at American Apparel earns about $12 an hour. The Little Market works with artisan groups around the world. They provide design insight, help the artisan partners showcase their skills to a broader audience. The work of each of the group is funded through earnings from the sales of their fair trade and locally made products. The mission is to build sustainable partnerships with artisans around the world by connecting them with customers through an online marketplace. They hope to empower women artisans in third world countries. The Reformation is a benefit corporation that is a new type of company that uses the power of business to solve social and environmental problems. They have fair labor. Most of the hourly workers are paid more than minimum wage, and over half are paid above the LA living wage threshold. They provide health care benefits to all full-time employees, including the manufacturing team. Alternative Apparel respects and values the right of workers in all countries and believe in the right to fair and safe workplace conditions. Their factories are in accordance with the Fair Labor Association Workplace Code of Conduct. Additionally, many of the factories they work with are certified by the Worldwide Responsible Accredited Production, an independent nonprofit team of global social compliance experts.